So let me state this right out of the gate. Today, we are going to talk about money. And just to get you thinking about the subject, let me share a few other fun terms that people use as a nickname for it. Now, you've probably heard of some of them. Let's start with the Benjamins. This is a reference to the $100 bill, which has Benjamin Franklin's face on it. I'm sure you all have plenty of those. This also works with the $5 Lincolns or the $20 Jacksons. Here's another one, moolah. I have no idea what that means. Bacon. Now, if you tell somebody to bring home the bacon, you're not telling them to bring you breakfast from Waffle House. I don't need the All-Star. You're telling them to show you the money. Here's another one, cabbage. I guess since cash is the color of cabbage, it makes sense. I don't know. And then, of course, there's bread. This one's a classic. I need some bacon and bread with my side of cabbage, right? Paper, bands, hundos, cheddar cheese, the bag, the list goes on and on and on. There are a lot of names for money because people talk about it a lot. And if you're anything like me, just hearing the word money brings up all kinds of thoughts and questions. For instance, is it bad to care about money? Is it bad to want more of it? Is it okay to talk about money in church? Newsflash, it's totally okay to talk about it in church, and that's exactly what we're about to do. So here's the thing. No matter who you are, there are a few things that are true for all of us when it comes to money. First, we all wish we had more. And second, money can be really frustrating. So for the first one, we all wish we had more. You get this, right? You have some stuff that you love to get and do. There's clothes and there's shoes that you want. There are clothing stores and vacations and a whole number of events and places that you want to go to. More money equals better things, and you want better things. Or maybe money isn't even a source of stress or tension in your family. Whatever your situation is, we all feel some level of want because when it comes to money, we all have an appetite for more. And an appetite is never fully satisfied. We think that if we had a magic amount or got certain things, we'd never need more again, but it doesn't work that way, does it? Eventually, there will be something else that we want, and the cycle just goes on and on and on. It never ends. Now, the second thing that's true for all of us is this. Money can be frustrating. Some of us feel trapped because we don't have a lot of it, and we have no control over the amount that our family has. Some of us don't work, and we don't get a say in how our parents spend it. Or maybe we work, but the money goes toward taking care of the family or saving up for college. Or maybe you have just enough, but never any extra to do things like travel or eat out when you want to. Maybe money causes tension or arguments in your family, and you feel like if you had more, maybe the fighting would stop. Or maybe you think that if money wasn't such a source of stress, you and your siblings wouldn't have to worry about some of the things that you do. And if we allow ourselves to be honest about how all of this makes us feel, we might say it makes us feel a lot of things, including angry. Angry at God for not providing what you need. Maybe angry at your parents for making certain choices that have caused your family to have the financial struggles that you do. Or maybe even angry if your parents have to spend all of their time making money and not much time with you. Angry at the world because you look around at it all and it all seems unfair. Angry or judgmental towards others who seem to have more than enough but don't have to work as hard or just take it for granted. See, all of these things can create tension, which can make us think money is bad. But here's the truth. Just because money is complicated doesn't make it bad. In fact, because it's so complicated, it matters even more that we learn to see it and talk about it in a healthy way. In case you thought that God doesn't care about money, consider this. The Bible mentions money more than 2,000 times, meaning that we aren't the first people to struggle with our thoughts and feelings about money. It's been complicated as long as it has existed. And we're going to look at a verse today from a letter written by one of Jesus' followers named Paul to a guy named Timothy, who was kind of like a son to Paul. So when Paul wrote to Timothy, it was as someone wiser who wanted what was best for Timothy. This is what Paul writes. For the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. Some people, eager for money, have wandered from the faith and pierced themselves with many griefs. Wandered from the faith? Pierced themselves with many griefs? I know it sounds like a lot, but we'll get there in a second. The first thing this verse points out is that money isn't the problem. It's the love of money that causes a problem. And when Paul says love, he's talking about an unhealthy obsession with money that's never satisfied. Like when your appetite for it begins to control you. It's on your mind all the time. It's all you can think about. And when it becomes that big of a voice in your life, it can lead you to make decisions that you might regret later. And to be clear, I'm not talking about when there's a legitimate reason for needing money. We all need money to meet basic needs. Paul's talking about when all your needs are taken care of and then some, and still these people's whole motivation in life is hoarding and chasing money to the point where they're never satisfied. An obsession with or love of money can become a problem because it can lead you to make compromises on things you might otherwise have seen as wrong, all to satisfy your appetite for more. Things like greed and stealing, jealousy, lying, all of these can be connected to a love of money. And when Paul said, pierced with many griefs, he's basically saying that these things will eventually come back and hurt you. There are consequences, either in your life or to your character. And Paul says that loving money is at the root or at the start of evil. And that may seem a little dramatic. I mean, is it really evil to really love the idea of getting the latest iPhone? Absolutely not. He's saying that if you find something evil in the world, there's a good chance that when you trace that evil thing all the way down to its root or its cause, you'll find someone loving money or the power they feel from having money. The word he uses here for evil simply means things that aren't as they should be. Love for money can make us see things that are not okay as okay. For example, we can find ourselves basing people's worth as a human on how much money they have or don't have. Or we might lie about how many hours we worked to get more money on our paycheck. Or we make decisions at someone else's expense because it benefits us. None of that is okay, but a love of money can lead to it. So what's the alternative to having an unhealthy love for money? Jesus tells us, and Matthew wrote it down, and he records Jesus saying this: "Do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moths and vermin destroy, and where thieves break in and steal. But store up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where moths and vermin do not destroy, and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also." Now, the first part of this verse makes one point. Every material thing on earth will eventually be trash or can be taken from you. It's a reminder to challenge what we value most. And the last part of this verse is key. The material things that take up your thoughts and your desires, your time, your energy, that's what's most important to you. And if an unhealthy obsession with money or the material things money gives you takes up that much space in your life, you're following something that will not quite satisfy you.
An appetite for material things is an acquired taste. When we're born, we didn't want anything but love, food, and sleep. Now, we want that and the new iPhone, that and the most money, that and whatever outfit will get us noticed. Go with me on this. What's the last thing you bought that satisfied you? And how long were you good before you wanted something else? That's the thing about stuff. When we don't have that thing, when it's just out of our reach, when it's just behind a closed door or a sealed box, it seems like that's the one thing I need. And when I get that one thing I don't have, then I won't really want anything ever again, anything else for now. So we get that thing and then we're cool for a minute, but as long as there are other closed boxes, we will always want more. Our appetite for more continues to grow. But here's the thing, appetites can change, not overnight. See, contentment, choosing not to be controlled by the extras of life, takes practice and maturity. Contentment is an acquired taste. The more you look for contentment, like the more you crave it and desire it, the better you get at noticing the difference between temporary fulfillment or eternal value. The better you get at making decisions about how to view money, not as a magic cure for all of your deepest human desires like acceptance or love or purpose, but as a tool to meet basic needs, serve others, and provide enjoyment, not fulfillment, in life. The temporary things will eventually be irrelevant, but the eternal things will last forever. What nobody ever tells us is this: the opposite of satisfaction is desperation. Why do you think advertisers make you feel so much pressure to buy things right now? To tell you you'll miss out if you don't do it now. To make you feel like you're the only one who doesn't have whatever the new thing is. Or that your life now is terrible and you need this thing to make it not terrible. Desperation makes you act on impulse. What's the big deal about temporary and eternal? I mean, there's nothing wrong with wanting, but wanting can hit a tipping point that turns into desperation. And desperation for stuff can make us do anything. It can make us do things we never thought we would. Fill your hands with material things and you'll realize it's a lot harder to serve when our fists are clutching things. It's a lot harder to worship when our hands are filled with things. It's a lot harder to give with a death grip on our things. But that's the thing about the things that money can't buy. Those things, peace, love, compassion, kindness, acceptance, rest, generosity, they fill us and free us. But the things that money can buy only occupy us, taking up space but not actually filling, weighing us down, but it's not actually rooting us. At the end of the day, you have a choice. You can control money, or money can control you.
Now again, just so we're clear, I'm not talking about those of us who need money for basic needs like food and a home. Needing money for those things are tremendously stressful, and they do take up lots of space in your life, as they should. Everyone deserves those things. But the truth is, money might be able to give your family a stable home and food in the fridge, but it can't give your family happiness. And that's what we're talking about. Feeding the craving for more and more money to buy ourselves happiness and satisfaction, it just doesn't work. And we know this already, right? Because after we get a new pair of Jordans, we don't stop wanting shoes. We love the iPhone 11 until the iPhone 12 comes out. And after we go on a trip with friends or family, we start planning the next one. Now, none of that is bad, but it reminds us that the happiness we get from those things doesn't last. We're just feeding an appetite. And the more you feed an appetite, the more it increases and the less satisfied it stays. I want you to think about the things you wanted in the past as a kid. You told your parents that if you got this, you'd never ask for anything again. And today, we can barely remember those things because that's what an appetite does. It gets so strong that it makes you believe that feeding it is the only thing that matters until you feed it. And then in no time at all, you forget all about it because you've moved on to wanting something else. Instead, Jesus is telling us to focus our hearts on eternal things, things that matter and things that last. You can't measure, count, see, or touch these things, but in the end, they make your life better. Things like love and compassion and kindness and honesty, selflessness, service. These are all eternal things. These are things that become building blocks to make you into the kind of person you want to be. And guess what? It lasts. And it doesn't mean we need to feel guilty for wanting money to buy that new shirt. It just means that we need to understand the reason behind the want. Why do we want this thing? What do we think that it'll do for us? Do we see this thing as being the answer to how we see ourselves or the way we want the world to see us? And when we understand that we're looking for money to give us something that Jesus has already given us, it changes how we view money. For example, maybe you want the new shoes to fit in, and that's okay, but just know that you already belong to Jesus. Material things can't take away or add worth to who you are. Maybe you want that nicer car because you want everyone to think your family has it all. Again, you are just as important and loved and valued whether you have that car or not. When we look to money to give us something it was never meant to, we'll end up disappointed and stuck in an endless cycle of a growing appetite and shrinking happiness. Money is meant to be a resource for day-to-day life, not the source of our worth as a human being. Money simply cannot deliver what the eternal things of Jesus can. Like the fact that you will never be alone if you have Jesus. That God loves you unconditionally because you belong to God. Or that you were made with a purpose to help make the world better. In the end, money is a big deal. It matters. We need it to meet our basic needs. Having it makes so much of life easier to navigate, and wanting it isn't bad. But there are things money can't do. It can't make us more or less of a person. It can't provide real friendship or community. We can't give it more power than God intended for it to have. Instead, we must keep it in its proper perspective. Here's a simple way to remember it. Money matters, but your attitude about it matters more. Or to put it another way, you can own money or money can own you. So as you think through your attitude about money, take a look at your heart and ask these questions. First, what are you expecting money to do for you? What do you want from it? Are you hoping for happiness, to be more popular, to make your family get along, or to make you stop worrying about the future? Is what you're wanting a temporary thing or an eternal thing? Money may give you a boost in your reputation for a minute, but not for forever. And at the same time, if you're living in fear of your basic needs not being taken care of, the temporary is super important. And there's nothing wrong with wanting and needing your basic needs to be provided for. And money can do that, which is why the next question is also important to ask. Can money give you what you really want? Now, yes, money can do some things, and that's very important to note. It can supply basic needs, and that's extremely important. Money does matter, but it can't do everything. And when you understand what it can and can't do, you can keep an appetite for more from taking over your heart. What change do you need to make in your attitude toward money? Maybe it's changing the way you use the money you have. Maybe it's addressing some of the anger you feel around it. Maybe it's asking for help getting the real needs of you and your family met. Maybe it's changing the way you see people who have more or less than you do. Imagine if we reached the end of our lives and looked back and realized that our hearts were invested in eternal things, things that Jesus wants for us, instead of material things that money can buy. Imagine how much more fulfilled our lives would be. Think about how much better our lives would be. In small groups, we can encourage each other to view money in a healthy way. It's important because you can own money or money can own you.